Okay, we're moving on to item 10.4. So item 10.4, thank you, Councillor Cooper, Te Ara Whetū Design. And we're going to have a short presentation on this today. We've had some information already, just so that we can have that conversation in the public domain. So I'll pass over to staff. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Madam Mayor. So we'll just, Mike Richardson is the project manager for Te Ara Whetū, so he was just going to run through the presentation and then happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation. So over to Mike.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, thank you for the opportunity to present this Te Ara Whetū report to you today. I'll take the report as read. Today we are here to get approval to proceed with option 4 of the strategic concept options for Te Ara Whetū, and also to note that we expect construction to start mid-2025. So up behind me here we've got some slides, and what I'm going to run through today is the 3 strategic concept options that we started with and that we had, and how we came to option 4, which we are looking to get an approval to proceed with. Just before we get started, in the current building and its state after we've done sort of some decontamination and strip out. You can see the photos just behind us here. There we go, so we'll keep moving forward. Thank you. And then the preferred option is, I'll skip past this one, we'll come back to it. So option 2 that we had was to go up to a 3rd floor. This one here, we also, on the top left-hand corner, you can see that we were pushing out the current building, trying to square it off there and really simplify the shape of the building, and then go up 1 extra floor here as well. We had the pros in going up here is we have the opportunity to extend the head height on the proposed level 1 there. We've got some risk in the current head height that we've got coming through in the beams. By doing that, removing the roof and putting a new floor directly above, we can lift that up to really, as you can see on the right hand side there, 4.5 metres compared to the ground floor that's 3.6 metres. This also creates a space that is a lot lighter and a lot more functional to use. Option 1 was the extension to the rear. So this was to keep the existing building as the 2 floors that it currently is, and just push back into the back car park. The biggest risk that we had with this option here was that the proposed ground floor, due to the floodplains, is that we're going to have a 100mm step between the 2 floors, which does create quite a few design implications, maybe a ramp going between it, and it's quite hard to work through. It also, the existing ground floor and that ceiling height issue that we've got there, it's proposed on as 2.9 metres. Extending that all the way through to the back would create a really long, low ceiling and hard to get that light from both ends of the building into the middle of the building, and creating that light, bright library that we're looking for. We've also got risks. So at the moment as well, in the existing building, is we've got some problematic internal gutters on the building, this option here as well doesn't take into account stripping that roof back and rebuilding it in a way that we're getting rid of those issues of this building. Here, this is a little bit of a diagram that really just highlights that that issue that we've got with the step, and as you can see, the 2.4 head height there. So that's to what would likely be the bottom of the services, and then where we've got the extension out the back, that could go as low as 2.3. And in option 3, we had a look at what the new build option could look like. The reason this was an option that we had to consider was because of the seismic rating of the building, and it was classified as seismically prone. At this stage of design and investigation, we weren't sure what the concrete structure was going to be like, and how much work we would have to put into seismically upgrading the building. Since then, however, we've had all 3 models engineered, so high-level engineering has been completed, has been designed for it, that our quantity surveyor for the project has then been able to budget that into these final figures as well. So we took all 3 options to the governance group and also to the Waikanae Community Board as well, and provided or showed them what where we were at and what options were available. Option two, so the option to go up to the 3rd floor, that was the preferred option. However, the budget so we'll just go back to it. So this option here was the preferred option. However, the budget overspend of the $2 million was a concern, and we were asked to go back to the drawing board to see what we could do to get that within our LTP budget. So we've come up with this, which is we have revised the top floor. We've reduced that down. Green Star accreditation is taken out. However, we are still designing with sustainable practices and construction practices, but we're just not going for the accreditation. But we are confident that we can build within the budget. Yeah, so that's what we're looking for. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Cofford.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that. With 3 stories, what percentage of the overall floor plan is circulation, getting people up there, stairs and things like that?
We haven't got the concepts provided at the moment, though they are being considered.
Wouldn't you factor that into the decision to go up 3 stories? I mean, it's more stairs and more lifts and things like that.
Yeah, that's right. So that has been considered as well, and we have made sure that the functional brief provided by Ian Littleworth and his operation team, that everything that they want or what's their key priorities can still fit into floor space that we've got. But yeah, you are correct that going up 3 floors does mean that.
We as Councillor Wilson alluded to last meeting, we don't want a Guggenheim where the whole ramp is the auditorium and you're standing on a slope with the skylight above you looking at modern art, and Frank Lloyd Wright apparently didn't like modern art. But anyway, we go on to the step, the 100mm step. Does that imply that half of it's at risk of flooding, the bit that you don't put up 100mm?
No, I think that this is a design, so due to the floodplains, this is just a consenting requirement that we've got.
So the floodplain will indicate that the flood level will go into the building?
Yeah, potentially. I don't know whether it's just the rear extension that goes into that flooding area, or whether
so it is a hazard. Yeah.
If you go backwards with that first option, you're extending the footprint into an area that has got that flood zone in it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether the front section, which is existing, is in that zone, because it's a
ponding. We talked about insurance this morning, and we find it very hard to insure if we to get a insurance claim if it did flood, because we knew it was in a flood hazard area.
Yes, so the current situation, it will remain for the main footprint of the building. So we're not changing that in any shape or form. So whatever that flood risk is and insurance risk would remain as it currently is.
I see the $3 million in contingencies and cost overruns is pretty high. What is the square meterage rate for the what is it, 1,365 square meters? What's the building rate per square meter? Sorry, I haven't got my calculator here.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't got it on the top of my head. Yeah, seven. Yeah, I don't want to take a punt on.
Oh, you just divide the. Sorry, anyone got a calculator? Just put the square area.
There's
into
one
that
on your
total.
iPad, councillor.
I'm trying to keep the rate. You can see where this is coming from. I'm trying to get them down. We're starting from now. Yeah, if we just give us just divide the square area 1,300 into 15. No,
What would be the
5,000 a
12?
metre, is it?
The 12.1, you mean, in terms of the actual construction cost estimate?
Per square metre, yeah, with the whole lot, yeah.
I'll turn my phone off because it went
We're
off
happy
last time.
to provide you with
Have you
that
got further
information.
Yeah.
questions? Because we can.
No,
just-
no, just out of interest, just to see what the total cost is per
No.
square metre.
$9,000 a square metre.
9,000, okay. That's about double a pretty ritzy house nowadays. Thank you.
Yeah, we're not building a house.
It's pretty expensive. Oh, yeah, have you considered...
Hang on a minute. Wait for your mic to come back.
On the basis of retrofitting an existing building, putting a floor on top, problems with the floor, you know, having 100 millimetre sort of flood hazard, and having constraints within the planning there, going up, having to go up, have we considered a flat site and no upstairs at all for a library?
Sorry, so you mean the total new build just
Yeah, total new build
That option
somewhere
3.
else, yeah.
was,
Yeah.
well, we considered option 3 on that site in terms of
Yeah.
the $22 million
Oh, no, I
option.
mean another site.
No, when we first came to council back in, I think it was October, September last year, we had all those options around alternative sites,
Yeah.
demolish, and the
Yeah.
preference at that meeting from council was to progress with the option of this
Yeah.
site. And we
Yeah.
provided some indication around some of those numbers, so staff have been focused on that as the recommended.
Yeah, I think from memory, the site sort of escalated for the retrofitting the existing building. That's from memory. I haven't got my other notes here, but yeah, I think it's pretty well double.
The budget?
No,
Sorry,
no, the
councillor?
estimate to retrofit this old building on the existing site, they're going up 3 stories, is about double what the flat site one was.
Yeah, I
I
can
mean, it's all
provide you
escalated.
with
but
the...
The other one would
full
escalate too over the
That's
last
right.
year, so yeah.
I
So,
guess the
sorry,
cost-
just wondered.
The cost will be, I mean, when we go to tender, in terms of
Yeah.
this is the estimate in terms of
Yeah.
cost.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just trying to sharpen up the costs a bit so our ratepayers are more comfortable with it. Thank you.
Yep, we do want to sharpen up costs, that's for sure. Councillor Spires.
Thank you. I was just going through the different options and thinking having option 4 rather than option 3 as a new build, is that false economy? I was just looking at that aspect of it. Would it not be, and maybe getting lottery funding or something? It's just that having a new build, then it's all new and not, kind of.
Yeah, we'll still be looking at at what funding we can get for the existing building as well. But there's no way we'd be able to do a new build with the budget that's in the LTP. I think that was made pretty clear.
That's where I was coming
Yeah.
from a budget issue. But would council have any opportunity to get funding from lotteries or somewhere else? So we did a new build rather
Yeah.
than patching up what's there.
well, you may be able to get some additional funding, I guess, but we were tasked with staying
Yeah,
within
I
the
know.
budget. I mean, the CapEx budget we have at the moment has been
Yeah.
significantly reduced because of the affordability
Yeah,
issue. So the focus was on remaining within the budget. The other focus was really on the disruption associated with the build in terms of Mahara Place itself. Demolishing that building and a new building there would add a significant amount of time to the project, add a significant amount of disruption, noise. From a sustainability point of view, we're retaining the existing building. So again, if you're demolishing that building, that creates a whole lot of other issues around disposal. Even though we may be able to recycle some of the concrete and other bits and pieces, there's still issues there. So it does tick a lot of boxes to retain the existing building, remain within the budget, limit disruption, get on with construction as soon as we can. All of the issues that came through, I think that the consultation work we did, and certainly from the community board, that they want us to get on with it and get something done.
Right. And it will be fully accessible for people in wheelchairs and people with disabilities and all that.
Yeah, yes, correct. Yep.
Great. That's good. Just checking. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Councillor Warwick.
With our conversation the other day about cost escalations, and this is now public, do we run a risk putting that in that contractors might just go, oh well, there's a slush fund of $2.5 million that we can go up? How do we stop that from happening, that anyone we contract to do this work is not just going to look at it and go 12 million, then we're going to make a bit of profit because we've got a cost escalation?
Yeah, I think
No?
a competitive tender is what's important here as well.
Yeah, we don't. So that tender document would have to will have a schedule of rates for every item within the construction. So and those items and those rates are tested then against what those market rates would be at the same time. So it's very obvious if someone's gouging that contract or putting in a rate that's ridiculously over what it should be. But also, as Mike said, if we get 5 or 6 contractors tendering for the work, they don't know who's tendering. So if you put a punt in and just fix your price at 12, 15 million, then that takes away your ability to maybe contest with someone that's realistically pricing it in terms of those dollars. But all of our budgets are published in the LTP in terms of a CapEx work program. So if you wanted to use that as an indication of what the tender should be, then it would be a pretty risky approach to being awarded the work if you did it that way rather than actually. Yeah, and most contractors wouldn't. I mean, they might be aware of it, but it's a big risk item to be pricing a $15 million or $12 million project off of a figure that you've seen at a council briefing.
I think contingency is needed for the contractor just as much as it's needed for us to reduce the risk. And there's also you can do a value engineer at any time and make sure you've got things right.
Oh, yeah,
That's right.
Right.
We'll do that along the way
Yeah.
as well.
Councillor Cooper?
Just a question on new build verse 3, verse 4. So 4, which is looking like is recommended, is 2 stories. Option 3 is a new build is 3 stories. Was 2 stories priced? And if so, what did that come in at?
As a new build?
Yeah, 2
No,
stories.
no, it wasn't.
Why was not, if we're recommending 2 stories on the options on a refit, why was 2 stories not explored for a new build?
I think
So,
is that option 2 with the extension out the rear?
No, option 3, the new build at 20 million is
Yep.
3 stories.
Yep. But the option 1 has the 2 stories with the extension out to the rear with the extra square
Yeah.
metre.
You know, I'm talking about the new build at 20 million, which is 3 stories, versus option 4 at 15 million, which is 3 stories. 2 stories.
No, we're sticking to the options have changed in terms of the numbering of what you've got there. I don't know if the numbering might be wrong, but
yeah.
the preferred option is definitely 3 stories.
Yeah, and the 2 stories, the risks and the negatives with going 2 stories and pushing out the back, and just the light that we could get into the building because of the neighbouring buildings on the north and south, and not being able to get windows in there. That's
So I'm
why
confused. It
it's
says
not considered.
option 4 here.
Option 4
The new level
is,
2.
Option 4 is the option that we're looking at on the screen.
So it's not.
It's on
What's that?
page 42,
Yeah.
and it says extension above existing building.
Yeah, we're referencing level
left-hand
1
column.
and 2, which might be a little bit.
with reduced
Confusing.
level 2. So that's
Yeah.
two. So that's 2 levels.
Yeah, but we're not including the ground floor.
Oh, so it's 3 levels.
Yeah, so it's a little bit confusing having that ground
Okay,
1,
so it's
2.
3 levels.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh,
So
I
that-
see,
that-
because it says a new level 2,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
actually
Okay.
that's the third
Yeah.
floor.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
So that answers my questions.
It's good to have that
Just a
clarified,
little bit
thank you.
confusing.
Yep.
Okay. So the price of all those prices, they're inclusive of the contingency.
correct,
Yep. Are they GST inclusive or are they GST exclusive?
exclusive.
X.
So, and we claim that GST back?
Yep.
Would we get all the GST back, or are we only going to get, depending on our books?
No, we get all of any payment that goes out with that on GST associated with it, we claim it back.
Okay, so it's just a pass through.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there what's the on what's the risk of that blowing out from 15 to 20? Bearing in mind we all know what renos are like. What's realistically are we actually going to be looking at excessively more?
We've done a lot of investigation work in the last 6 months, looking at the concrete structure. We've had, so concrete scanning done. We've had like scabbling to see what the reinforcing's like inside there. We've had engineers do some modelling on the building as well. As you could see in the photos, we've stripped out the whole building to actually see what's behind there and what's hidden. We've had asbestos reports done as well. So I think we've really done a lot of work to try to mitigate as much.
Yeah.
You're pretty
Yeah.
happy. Okay, you're pretty happy.
Yeah, I think if you look at Toi Mahara, the gallery, that was a retrofit as well. We stayed on budget there in terms of delivery. We spent some of the contingency, but again, we didn't get to do as much due diligence on that project as this because we got to clear out, like as Mike said, we've done a lot more work. in terms
Okay,
of
so we've learnt some good lessons and put it into this project.
Yep.
Fantastic. Just 2 little questions, and it comes back to what Rob was asking. On that 3rd story, how much of that is actually usable space?
So when I find that question a little bit hard to answer because we don't have the concept designs complete in front of us yet, so we don't know what the layout of that floor looks like.
Yep.
All we can see is that that we've got 250 square meters and a 45 square meter terrace. So that,
Yep.
to be fair, that's all I can answer. On
So
that.
my question would be, if that comes back when you do have those conceptual designs and there isn't actually a lot of usable space or it's reduced dramatically and on a cost versus benefit ratio, is there an opportunity to come back to us? Or once we sign off, that's it, she's locked in?
So if we'll go back to the governance group with the layout, and if there's a risk and they're not comfortable with that as well, we'll also go back to the community board as well. We'll
come here. But we are telling the designer you need to make as much the usable space as determined by the 1,300 square metres in that working group. So they have to design it in a way that provides it. So and they have to stay within the budget, and they've got a 3rd story to accommodate that. So if they can't do that, they're going to need to come back to us and tell us they can't do
Okay.
it. So
Great, because I imagine the square metre rate that Rob was asking about, the higher you go, the higher the square metre rate goes. So your first floor is going to be, let's say, just 5,000 a square, your next one's going to be 7, and your 3rd story is going to be exponentially more, would be as a broad concept.
possibly. I mean, the seismic strengthening as well as an element,
Yeah.
regardless of how many
Higher
story.
you go, of course. Okay.
You could factor it that way, but like I said, we've told them they have to meet that requirement in terms of usable space. So that's what we're expecting them to deliver.
Great, thank you. Cheers.
Oh, sorry, would it be
Councillor Crawford?
possible to, through you, Madam Chair, would it be possible to have a concept design just slightly advanced so we can look at that before we make a decision?
We've been asked to decide
we?
on an approach, and based on that approach, we'll go into creating those designs. So I think we need to make this decision in order to move on to that next
Yeah.
step.
Well-
So, yeah, I'll be
very
asking
unusual.
us to move the recommendations today, which are around cost and approach, not around final design. And then anybody who's uncomfortable with that can make decisions accordingly. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, I'm going to move the recommendation,
Right, let's go to the recommendation.
which is for. Not mine.
So the recommendation approved with proceeding with option 4 of the strategic concept option for Te Ara Whetū, and notes the delay around start of construction to mid-2025. You're moving both of those?
Yep.
A and B on page 38, moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Halliday. Right of introduction.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. The community board has been across this for quite a long time, and been really well informed. Richard, who chairs the community board, has been of enormous value in understanding this kind of development stuff, which is past me. I personally wanted to spend 20 million. 25 actually was the number I was looking at for Waikanai, obviously, but being realistic. So option 4 was the one that made sense. But to the point that Shelley's made and others have made, the contingencies and cost escalations, seems how Comrade Coe, who moved us into this new headspace this morning, I think that this is a really good opportunity just to kind of keep a close tab on things, because these, we've had some pretty scary numbers have come from time to time. This is going to be just an absolutely superb project, which has been a long time in the offing, by the way. But yeah, Richard might want to talk to it, but I think we were all quite satisfied that the numbers made sense, and that this, in terms of bang for buck, but again, the $25 million option, I was outvoted on that. So yeah, this is the best. This is the best of them.
Councillor Kirby. No, you've already moved this. No, don't.
I just, with my involvement at Ministry of Education, the contingency stuff and 20% is a normal part of construction builds. It's just normal to see that in there. And to assume that we're going to not be managing that well, I think isn't fair on our staff. And we will be over this, and I can guarantee you the community in Waikanai will be over this with a fine-tooth comb. But I'm excited to see us pushing this ahead. I like the idea of being able to go to a third story, and which gives us the room to create some space and some light in that building, because I think it's going to be really helpful for us. I would like to suggest that as part of that concept, we look at also in there having a concept design that continues to hold the full size of level 2, because there may be some extra benefits to that as we go through, but I think this is a good start. And I don't think it would be too much extra work for Studio Pacific to put one with the extended one upstairs, and that may get the cost per metre down, and get us a better outcome in the end for not much more than what we're proposing here at 15.5. So I'm supporting this option at this stage.
Councillor Halliday? I'm going to give you the right of reply, Mr. Mansell, because I'm assuming Nigel doesn't want it. You want it?
Look, fully support where we're going with this. I guess the only thing I wanted to flag is making sure that we've got other components tying into this as this project moves forward. I've always been a strong believer of each of our areas having a heart. I see Waikanai having an art heart, if you like, as it ties into the District's Art Gallery. But we've got a Hearts and Heritage strategy that we're about to implement, and the same with the tourism strategy. So it'd be really good to make sure that's all lining up with regards to the completion of this project, and making sure that I would hate to get this completed and then we start looking at, okay, how are we going to perhaps work a tourism or a heritage approach into that area, when we could be doing that as part of that journey, if you like. So just making sure that those different parts, looking at you, Brendan, with the parts are lined up as such would be much appreciated.
So I'll just have a little go. I'm really happy with this approach. I'm relieved to see it. It reduces waste to landfill, using as much of the existing structure as possible. It answers our community's call to live within our means and make the most of what we have. There's a lot of discussion at the moment around repurposing and reusing infrastructure, not always building new. So I'm really happy to see us doing that. I think the devil will be in the detail, what goes into that space and how we make it live and breathe so that it's a wonderful facility. That will be where the real value comes. So really happy with the work that's gone on, and thank you to the staff and to everyone who's been involved. I just think back to when we had to make a similar call with Toi Mahara, and much of that building was reused and repurposed, and you wouldn't know. It seems like a new building, and the quality that we've managed to put into that smaller footprint and that smaller space. So let's take heart that we're not going for a second best option. We're going for an affordable but still high quality option that's going to be great for the Waikanae community. So Mr. Mansell, and then I'll go to Nigel for his right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Waikanae Community Board have been given the opportunity to look at this in quite some detail and to question both the architects and the council staff. We were always of the opinion that we needed to build something quickly because it had been a long time, and I think using the existing is the best way to build quickly. We were also mindful of affordability, so when we were given options in the last triennium, I think it was, about whether we spend 10 million or 13 million or 17 million, we were happy to go with 10 million because it just got a facility there and something fantastic could be built with that 10 million. I'm very heartened that the build cost has actually gone up to 15 million, and thank you very much, everybody. What I would point out is that KCDC overheads is not actually a cost, except in an accounting perspective. What you're doing is shifting staff salaries off the profit and loss and onto a capital project. So there's sort of, a little shy of $1 million that isn't actually a cost of the building. So Councillor Kirby can be relieved by that and not take away our library. And
That's not fair.
he keeps telling me the library's going. Sorry, he doesn't. He does say that tongue in cheek, and I withdraw and apologise for that remark. So, yeah, the Waikanae Community Board are really supportive of option 4. It used to be option 2 bar 1, but we've changed. Option 4 is what we want, and we accept that it will take a while to get going, but we also realise that that is because they're going to spend a lot of time getting the design right and before they go out to tender, and that is the best way to manage costs, so nothing unforeseen comes in. So it's a really clever way of doing a building project, and I've done a few myself. The more detail you give to the builders, the less chance they've got of doing extras. So, as I said, the Waikanae Community Board are very happy with this approach. Thank you.
That's great to hear. So, Councillor Wilson, right of reply.
Yeah, just to finish off, just a thanks actually to all of the staff who've been involved in this and kept us up to speed all the way through, so that the decisions are informed ones. Shy as she is, next to me, Councillor Provanov had a lot to do with getting this library going.
Yep.
As did the former Councillor Michael Scott. These people have been champions for Waikanae, and so we should really acknowledge what they've done in terms of getting it to this stage. So this is a massive triumph for this council, getting this across the line today. So well done, you. Oh, I'll tell you after the vote.
So I'll quickly put that to the vote. All in favour? All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Well done. Okay. So I know we're excited, but we do have more agenda items to go. Thank you, Mike. Wonderful. Reports and recommendations from committees and subcommittees on page 45. Who's going to take us through this? I thought you were busy with a rep review. You're going to do this. Okay. Great. Okay. Can we have a little bit of order so we can carry on?
Right, well, I'd just like to introduce this report. Reports and recommendations from committees and subcommittees. We'll just take it as read, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Right. Okay. How to approach this? So let's get A out of the way. Who moves that council receives this report? Move Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor Coe. All in favour? Aye. That's carried. They've got B, that council notes the following recommendations received from the Social Sustainability Subcommittee. Would you like to speak to them, please, Councillor Halliday? There are some recommendations from the SOF committee there.
Do you want to pass on to it? I'll actually pass on to Kathy, if that's all right, because she's
absolutely
our
fine.
councillor
So
on
we
that
kind of got
committee.
an informal suspension of standing orders. We're just going to kind of talk our way through these and come to some kind of way forward. Kathy.
Thank you. It's just one of the recommendations was so people with disabilities and in mobility scooters, when they park in one of their disability parks, it takes them a lot longer to get out of the car if they have to get into a wheelchair or things like that. So asking for extra time rather than the hour. And also that when there are no parking for people with disabilities, if they could use one of the other car parks but have extra time. And also, because one of the parks for people with disabilities, Seaview Road in Paraparaumu Beach, is on an angle, and it's kind of like looking at those kind of things as well, because it's harder to get out if you've got a physical disability. So it was just, this came from that committee. So just making it easier for people with disabilities, because sometimes it takes, like 10 or 15 minutes to get out of your car, and then you've got half an hour to shop if you're in our park.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really just so if there's no parking for people with disabilities, they can use other car parks, but don't get a ticket if they're there longer than what they're meant to be.
Great.
But I understand a report will go back to social sustainability.
Yeah, so what we've got here is we've got a note of the recommendations under B, and then under C we've got some potential actions that we're going to take in response to those recommendations.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's really investigating and reporting back on the feasibility of these suggestions. So that's a good first step, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
And then there was one around measles. Does anybody want to talk to that? Martin?
What was it? So look, I just wanted to just comment that really great seeing this process in place with regards to items coming through, coming basically from a subcommittee or a working group that we've got in relation to our community, coming through to our committee, and then it being captured here, and then we'll track it and report. It'll be given oversight back through the Social Sustainability Committee with regards to implementation or recommendations from officers where we go to next as such. So I just wanted to thank officers for putting this in place with regards to a process which just allows, I think, a lot more validity with regards to a lot of those subcommittee groups. When I look at the Older Persons Council, I look at the Disability Group and others who I think have been asking for a pathway with regards to getting a result from the recommendations that they've been making, rather than it just being noted, having a pathway for actually getting some result. And I think that's a fantastic step and a very positive step as well.
It's not easy. That's why it's taken a little bit of time. But thanks for that acknowledgement. And staff do really well with that. Absolutely. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, B and C just completely makes it. I wanted to talk to D, but we're not there yet, I don't think. Sorry, I'm ahead of you.
No, I think we're talking...
Do you want to talk D as well?
Shall I move B, C and D?
Yeah, and moved by Councillor Kirby, seconded by Councillor Wilson.
Well, I'm not convinced by D, actually, for reasons that we...
Okay, so let's go B and C, and then we'll talk about the measles thing.
Yeah.
You say, okay, so we're moving B and C, and the only thing we're doing is noting the recommendation around the measles. Apart from that, we're approving these, if it passes, we're approving these actions around mobility car parks and people with disabilities. So, Councillor Kirby moved. Councillor Wilson seconds, and this is B and C.
Yeah.
Right of introduction? Waived. Any other comments around B and C? Councillor Cooper?
Yeah, it directly relates to D.
No, we're not doing D yet.
I know we're doing B, but B recommends to the mayor, councillors and council encourage parents potentially affected by...
So we're just noting that recommendation at the moment. We're going to actually go to D, which is the possible reaction to it, after we've done B and C. So we're not actually discussing measles at the moment. We're discussing disability car parks. And then we'll move in second D and we'll talk about measles.
I'll talk to B and C. Fantastic recommendations from the subcommittee, and I think this is a really good example where it's subcommittee can bring something really powerful and meaning to the full council. So congratulations to those councillors on that committee. We absolutely fully supporting those recommendations. I think that they're very well thought out and presented.
Thank you.
I'll talk to D later.
Great. Councillor Warwick?
I think this is what we... Page 47, it says Youth Council report, and it was a partner report about Otaki Pool, so I'm not sure what was discussed or what was put on the table, but I don't know who's on the Youth Council. I know that Otaki kids find it hard to get down to here to attend things like that. I'm just hoping that within that there is discussion with Otaki Youth if that's an Otaki matter.
That's outside the
Of-
recommendations that we're
Okay.
considering right now, but certainly your comments noted. We'll make sure that gets followed up. Can you send me an email with that comment and we'll follow it up? Mr. Mansell?
Just chatting to option B1 or point B1, I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but the majority of disabled car parks are provided by private providers like myself, and it would be really useful if all disabled car parks or disability car parks could be mapped rather than just ones that are on council for owned properties. It's a really important thing for me personally that we provide decent car parks and decent disability car parks, and I think having those able to be seen by whoever wants to and know that they can come and get a decent car park at Coastlands or at another private provider would be really a helpful thing.
Yeah,
It
it's not quite,
expands.
yeah. Even though that's not quite what the recommendation says, I think we'll follow that up anyway. I don't think we need an amendment or anything like that. That's
Yeah.
certainly what I thought was going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Kirby?
Can I take my right of reply now?
Yes.
I can respond to that one from Mr.
Yes,
Mansell.
please.
The wording of the recommendations, particularly C1, talks about identifies mobility car parks and public roading network, which does exclude potentially private ones, but the intent of it was that all mobility car parks across the Kapiti Coast District, including private ones, were mapped, acknowledging, because, you know, as you rightfully say, a lot of them are provided by private. So would you like us to, I'm happy to create an amendment
Just cross
to
out
that.
the words public roading network.
Yep. So remove the public roading network specifically out of C1 so that it just says in the Kapiti Coast District.
Yeah, who seconded again?
Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Wilson, are you happy with that amendment? Yep. Okay. So that's been moved and seconded. We've had our right of reply. Councillor Halliday, have you got something you want to add? I'll allow it.
Yeah, look, just what we're seeing here is exactly why we're doing this, which is fantastic. I think you're right, the intent was there with regards to wider review, but there was always going to be challenge with regard, well, not challenge, but there's going to be another step with potentially communicating and what that might look like, which will be picked up in the second one. So thank you for bringing that up.
Councillor Wilson, have you got something to add? We've had the right of reply, but
No,
I'll
no.
allow it if you have
No, I'm
something
just,
burning.
no, just waiting for D, just eager anticipation, as always.
You're just waiting for the measles. Okay, so we've moved B and C with that amendment, crossing out the words public roading network. I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's carried. So now we're moving on to D. That,
Yes.
okay. You've got the chair of the Social Sustainability Committee here, and I think this piece of work we're doing, creating a
You
map,
see what the gaps
will
are, yeah,
be
exactly.
a bit like a needs assessment. We'll be able to see
Yeah.
where they are, where they're not, and might well lead to that outcome. So D, councillors consider using their platform as elected members to encourage parents of potentially affected children to ensure that they are immunised against measles. Do I have a mover for that?
Happy to move.
Moved by councillor Halliday.
But after saying that, questions, there's a question aspect of this beforehand. Do we want to?
We can ask questions anytime. I'll
Okay,
just get it
cool.
on the table. Mover, seconder, councillor Kirby. Okay, so any questions or debate?
Look, I'll just quickly do a quick intro if you like. And look, I have to make
You
an
have got
apology.
the right of introduction.
Eh?
You have got the right of
Yeah,
introduction.
I do. And Kathy, you might need to help me out here. Look, I do apologise, but I haven't really prepared myself with regards to talking to this. This is a bit new, so it's caught me by surprise. Apologies for that.
We had a lot on the agenda today.
Well, yeah, no, it's a bit of serious reading going on. I can't actually remember who came in and presented to us on this. Oh, you can talk to that?
Councillor Kirby?
So we had CAHEG come in and presented us some information about the issue of measles and the evidence that exists within the Kapiti community of the gap of children that aren't immunised in our district. And so they recommended the use of this, and this particular recommendation came from CAHEG's input as our advisory group.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, so just looking at the broader philosophical view of this, that councillors consider using their platform for this. That's what I have an issue with. If someone comes in and says councillors should also use their platform to encourage people to immunise against leaping Mombasa monkey virus or anything. I've got 4 kids all immunised against measles, and grandchildren the same thing. So there's no issue for me personally with that. But I just think you start straying into really interesting territory when you're getting councillors to specifically to use their position for a specific purpose like this. And people should just go out and encourage, just say what you think, but this kind of formalises that, and so where does that go? And when you set a precedent about that sort of thing, I think there's some issues that might arise. So again, I've got no problem with sort of going out and saying to people, you should make sure your kids are taking care of measles, but doing it formally as a councillor, it feels like a slight abuse of my position, because that's what we're using. This is being asking us to use our position as elected members, and so that's my.
Yeah, so I'm inclined to agree with that. I think this is stepping outside our role as councillors. I wouldn't like to feel pushed. I mean, whether or not I think children should be immunised against measles is kind of immaterial. It's not mandatory to be immunised against measles. We're not encouraging people to obey the law like we are with drink driving, for instance. It's just we're just straying into a bit of a grey area and a slippery slope and a thin end of a wedge, and I'm just a little bit concerned about it. So I won't be supporting it. It doesn't mean I don't support immunising against measles, but I won't be supporting this motion.
Yes, I just want to reiterate really what Nigel and the Mayor has said. We've currently got a whooping cough outbreak in the Wairarapa, which has spread into Wellington, and immunisation rates against whooping cough are very low. We've got uni students heading off to uni in about 4 months' time who should be getting immunised now for the HPV virus. And sorry, the meningococcal meningitis. So our uni students should be. So I understand measles is a horrible, evil, nasty virus, but when we start to cherry pick, we need to think about unintended consequences as well. If we are focusing on one evil, horrible disease, what are the unintended consequences around those conversations as an organisation? I would encourage everyone to support immunisations. For me to support this, I'd need to see a report by some eminently qualified physicians around some of those concerns, around how we address all of these diseases. So whilst I encourage everyone who's listening and the community to go and get vaccinated, I don't think this is a platform or the means to do that, to send that message. And there are lots of good organisations out there that do work in the community. So sorry, I won't be on this one.
So, Martin, as the mover, you've got your light on. Is there something? Yep. I'll let you.
Okay, so what we've got here is a situation, we've got a new process in place. So this is challenging. This is the first time this has come through. I agree with what's being said. I don't disagree with what's being said. But we do have a health committee. It's called the Kapiti Health Advisory Group that has put a recommendation to us that could council put something out as a media release. Now, it wasn't really discussed about councillors using this as a platform. I think that's one of those things that if people wish to or don't wish to, that's their prerogative. But with regards to messaging, with regards to health and well-being, what is a pathway with regards to taking that advice from our health advisory group in regards to addressing it? Now, whether it is a media release from KCDC on behalf of KHAG, I'm not too sure what a correct process would be. But they are following a process here with regards to getting a result that they're asking for. So it's up to us to really come up with a proposal. If we're just saying to them, oh, look, I'm sorry, there is no platform here, then really that shuts down one of the purposes of that group. They've spoken to the Social Sustainability Committee. They've raised their concern. It's up to those elected members whether they take it on. But formalising elected members taking a platform No,
that's not what
I'm talking
about. By way of a motion.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I didn't see this motion before it came to the table. I probably would have done something else.
And that's not a motion that came from our committee.
No, okay.
That's
so are you happy to withdraw it at this time so we're not voting against it?
I'm quite happy to withdraw that with regards to that, or modify it, or would you like, because it's a message that does need to, what, you're shaking your head there, Shelley?
Yeah.
You disagree, do you?
Sorry, Martin, can we go to some other elected members?
Yep, sure.
They might have some ideas.
I have
That's
a suggestion. I think the issue here is raising awareness of the prevalence of measles in our community, and I think we stop it at that, and we don't go to the next step and recommend that people immunise. That is there's a freedom of choice around that, and we raise the prospect of creating ire in our community from those people who do not condone vaccination or immunisation. But I think we do have an obligation from a wellbeing point of view to put the facts in front of people to say, hey guys, do you realise there is an epidemic of measles in this community? Here's some facts. You can respond to that in the way you see appropriate, but I do think we have perhaps a duty to let people know what is happening in our community and allow them to make an informed choice about how they respond to it. So that would be my suggestion, that if there is an issue, and I'm not sure what the stats are, but if there is an epidemic of some kind or whatever, that we let people know that.
You see, the problem is we don't have that information.
Well, that's what
and
I'm
we
asking.
don't know that it's worse than meningococcal risk or HPV levels of vaccination. We don't have that information in front of us. And as governors, making a decision with a vacuum of information is not good governance. So
No, but I guess the question is, you know,
I don't
Do
think
we
we're
have a role?
beholden as elected members. Like, I mean, it might be a good idea, but we're not beholden, like you said, to. It's not compulsory for us to go out and raise awareness of measles in the community. We might decide there are other messages that are more important to focus on, or we might decide that we want to take up some of the issues that Councillor Cooper has mentioned. But we do respect CAHAG, and they have come to us with this particular concern, but they've spoken to the committee. Those elected members have heard. They already have the ability to do this in response, but formalising it in a motion, I just feel a little bit uncomfortable about it, because it's telling councillors what their chosen messages should be,
that's
or
right.
what their
Yeah, I disagree
angle
with the
should be.
motion, but I do think we need to clarify whose role it is to raise awareness of epidemic issues in our community. Is that our role, or is it the Ministry of Health's role, or what? Because if there is vital information that's of importance to parents, somehow they need to get that information. So maybe that's something we take offline and investigate to say, you know, what is our role? How can we better inform our community around issues that are, you know, current?
Okay, I'm going to start going with the list. Shelley. Councillor Warwick.
Nurse work. So I have two roles. One is a vaccinator and the other is council, and I don't see that my role as a councillor is my role to spread the message of vaccination. It is my role in my other job. But my questions are, you know, what is the DHB doing about it? I think the Ministry of Health is doing lots about it. And so, like Liz said, we could ask them, how do we promote that message, you know, through our media or whatever. But I also come across people who absolutely do not want to vaccinate their children, and so it is not our job to, I don't think, to tell them that we are endorsing that. The DHB puts a lot of money into this, and I think with the measles potential outbreak or what is happening now, they are going to put money into it. So we can support that by maybe putting the messaging somewhere that they, you know, that will get to our community. But it's not our job to promote the message. That's the job of health workers, not councillors.
Councillor Pravanov.
Yeah, thank you. So I wasn't going to say anything, but I am now. So I agree that it is not our role to use our position to encourage parents to be to have their children vaccinated against measles or anything else. Part of that, and I suppose if this motion passes in some form or other, to me it's not only about council, it's about elected members as well, if we go down that path. My question is, so at the Social Sustainability Subcommittee, were these recommendations actually made there, or are these recommendations that CAHAG has put forward and somehow they've come into this here? What actually was the process during that meeting?
Can we just move to a decision on this, because we've
Okay.
spent a lot of time.
Okay.
I don't want to go round the house
Okay.
about what happened in a subcommittee. No,
Okay.
I'm going to Councillor Kirby. He's next on the list if Councillor Pravanov's finished.
Okay,
'Cause
that's fine.
You've had 3 bites at the cherry, I think.
I'll
Martin.
respond.
So
Councillor Halliday is the mover of this motion, and I think it would be wise for him to say something first.
no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
Okay.
that you're next on the list,
Okay.
and then we'll go to Councillor Halliday for a right of reply. I just want to wrap this discussion up.
Okay, so just to be clear, we passed in recommendation B and C what took place in the Social Sustainability Committee in terms of recommendations, and all it was a recommendation that council look at that in regards to measles. This D is an extra recommendation that has come in on this report, not as a recommendation from the committee. That's all I'll say in terms of clarification.
That's good. Now we'll go to Councillor Halliday.
Okay, through you, Madam Chair, I'm happy to withdraw the motion at this stage. What we can do is look at perhaps a better way to bring this to the table. It's brought up an issue that's relevant. Interestingly, as part of the Social Accountability Committee, there's a piece of work being done at the moment with regards to an approach to a regional health group as such, which would potentially be looking at how we educate at a broader scale on a regional level with council input as such. Very much at the beginning of the process around what that even looks like as such. Modelled a little bit on the Regional Waste Minimisation Group or the other groups that are out there as well. So this has been the first time that we've had something like this come through. I think we'll capture it in a stronger way when it comes through the my particular committee. We'll capture this in a different way, and we'll look at the styles of messages, what's an appropriate pathway for them, and and perhaps a better wording rather than it just being elected members. Elected members, if it was a decision to do a press release through the mayoral office or whatever, then if councillors wanted to pass that message on, they have that option of doing that. But at this stage, I'll withdraw that and we'll look at a perhaps better process or a process to address these sorts of recommendations, which may start coming through more regularly as these groups start utilising this as a mechanism for getting their messaging out to the wider community. But I do take on board all the feedback that's been given today as well. Sorry, this one's caught me a little bit by surprise. But that's part of the growth of developing these committees and a part of the growth of the messaging that we should or shouldn't be putting out, or the pathways with regards to addressing the requests that the various subgroups make as well.
So we're learning a lot from this little discussion today in terms of how to deal with the conversation around these motions. So the mover and the seconder. So I just want to check, Lauren, Councillor Kirby is happy to withdraw. The standing orders are a little bit unclear, but so I'm going to just take a vote that that's okay with everybody, that this is being
Could we leave it lying on the
withdrawn?
table, Madam Chair, if that's more appropriate? And then
No, because then it has to come back. We've got to say when it's going to come
okay,
back.
I was just checking.
So we'll just get all in favour of this motion being withdrawn at this time, noting aye, and noting that it doesn't mean we don't support the principle behind the motion. We just need to do further exploration of recommendations around advocacy from subcommittees. So now we go to 10.6, reports and recommendations from community boards on page 50.
Moved. Lunch. Moving everything.
Kia ora koutou.
quite a bit
I'd
in
just
here.
like to take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Have you moved A, B, C, D, E, and F?
Yep.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? Okay.
Yes, please.
So we've had A, B, C, D, E, and F moved. Can I have a seconder? And then we'll debate them individually and vote on them individually. So they've been seconded by Councillor Warwick. So I'll take a vote on A. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. Now we'll discuss and vote on B, that Council notes the recommendation from the Otaki Community Board, that the Otaki Community Board strongly supports the Kapiti Citizens Advice Bureau and recommends to Council that they should be financially and non-financially supporting the organisation. Kapiti CAB have reported to the Otaki Community Board that they will close their doors at the end of 2024 due to lack of funds or alternative funding sources. We would like to note that a Kapiti CAB is the only CAB in the country not supported by the local territorial authority. So B is noting that recommendation, and I would also note that we've already decided to support them through the long-term plan today.
I thought that was being taken on. Yep. But it's okay. that
We
it's
can
gone
note
through.
it.
Yeah.
It's just noting.
Just noting it.
And so C is that council notes that the additional council meeting, we approve funding of 35,000. So we'll take B and C together because they're just noting. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. Why do people have their lights on? What do people want to say? Okay, good. So I'll now move on to D, that council notes the recommendation from the Waikanae Community Board meeting. That's supporting the application made by the Rekerangi Residents Association, that the Waikanae Community Board recommends to council, so that's not a noting, to approve a Waikanae Property Fund grant. Oh no, that is noting a recommendation that the Waikanae Community Board recommends to Council to approve a Waikanae Property Fund grant. So D is all noting that the Waikanae Community Board recommends to Council to delegate to the Waikanae Community Board the authority to administer and disperse the Waikanae Property Fund. So this is actually taking, so that's all noting. So how about we note all that first, so we're quite clear. So I'll put that to the vote. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. So now we move on to actual actions by Council. So we have E, that Council approves a Waikanae Property Fund grant to the Reikarangi Residents Association of $35,000 to assist with the cost of installing a playground. So that's been moved and seconded. I'll invite the mover, Councillor Wilson, for his right of introduction.
Okay. Well, we heard the discussion this morning during public speaking about this. It was a unanimous decision at the community board. In the normal course of events, assuming that F gets sorted as well, then we wouldn't have to have bothered council with this at all, because it could have just been decided there that a Waikanae community board gets to determine where Waikanae money gets to be spent in Waikanae, rather than troubling the rest of the table. But so that's really all needs to be said about that.
Do you have any further debate on E? Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you through the chair. So, as we heard from Julia Palmer today, that this was their application was provided to the Waikanae Community Board when there was a number of funding opportunities for applicants, and this one was actually moved from the Waikanae, the other funds, to this Waikanae Property Fund. I have grave concerns over this council approving this application. There are no criteria around how this money will be spent. The board has made a decision on spending this money without consideration for going out to the wider public on spending the money. And so I think, this application is actually not time bound. So I think the board needs to actually make some, if I can.
Councillor Pravanov has the floor.
Thank you.
I'll invite members. I'll ask members not to interject. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I've lost my train of thought. So to me, this application is not time bound, and I have to say I have actually got no problems with F, but it's a case of where the criteria needs to be well laid out so that everyone has an equal opportunity to actually apply for these funds if they so need to, rather than an arbitrary ad hoc decision that has been made by this community board. So I will not be supporting E.
Who's next? Councillor Coe.
Yep, look, I think it's a fantastic idea to have a new playground at Rikarangi. It just amazes me that the funding for this needs to come from the Waikanae Property Fund. We have a number of communities in Kapiti that are what you'd call isolated communities. Rikarangi is one, and we have others besides that. And what I've observed is that in some of those areas, the playgrounds are woefully inadequate. There is significant underinvestment in those playgrounds, and yet they are really key parts of what you'd call an isolated community. So, do I have people's attention, or? So I just think it's probably time we reviewed what we're spending on playgrounds in these smaller communities to make sure everyone's being fairly treated, and that I feel it should be coming out of council's funding rather than the Waikanae Property Fund necessarily. Even within Waikanae, there are other areas that are deserving of better playgrounds. But as I say, I totally support the initiative, and there's been a lot of effort put in to that playground by the Residents Association, and good on them for doing that. That's absolutely fantastic, and the project needs to go ahead. I'm just saying, you know, what about all the other areas in such small communities that are being that continue to be neglected? Any response from that?
It's not a question. I think it's just something we need to debate. I've got Councillor Cooper next.
I had it's actually a question around the and it's picking up on Liz and Jocelyn. So firstly, is the Waikanae Property Grant Infinite Fund? How much is in that account? Or is that? Yep, I'm asking the report. So I'm asking staff.
Currently, there is $187,000 in that fund.
Okay, and so in respect to this, has there been any sort of process to look at other areas that could be spent in that area that are of more value to the community, or is something someone's applied and it's been pushed through by the community board?
I'll take that. So I'll say no. This has come from the community board, and they've given a direction as to what they would like to do, and so that recommendation is coming to council for a decision. So officers have simply implemented that.
Awesome, thank you. I generally, and this is not a question now, I generally listen to the ward councillors. I think the ward councillors for the area know their community and are in touch with their community. And I think I've always voted with the ward councillors. We've got one each way. Yeah. So we paper, scissors, rock, possibly. It is a sizable amount of. It concerns me that I've got concerns after listening to Jocelyn around this. So yeah.
So
it's not to say it's a good project.
I think you raised some good points. So I'm looking at paragraph 15.4, and I've got a question for staff. So I'm kind of reading into that paragraph that it's not going to be easy to establish this playground, that there are a whole lot of considerations. I just want an assurance from staff that this $35,000 will be able to be spent and a playground will be able to be achieved, and their level of comfort with us allocating this funding today to this project, noting that it's in its very early stages.
Yeah, so it's the total cost is more than 35, so we're part funding it. So it's 35. I think the invoice or the quote is about 55, as Julie spoke to this morning. The team have been involved previously, like in the discussions, and so the quote provided is a supplier that we would normally use. So that's good. The condition that you're talking about is we just want a little bit of oversight on the process to ensure that all our health and safety obligations and all that are met. And so that's kind of what that talks to, and then some decisions on the ongoing operational kind of maintenance of the playground. So so just some sort of involvement in the process is sought. So we do. So the grant application was a good application. There has been some work done with the Residents Association on it to date. And so the key for us is just making sure that we tick all our boxes on our side in terms of requirements, legislation. There are certain rules around playgrounds, the design, how they're installed that we need to meet when this is done. So just a little bit of oversight on that process.
Yeah. If you want to make a procedural motion, you do that.
I'd like to move that we leave this particular recommendation in motion on the table pending more information. I note in the agenda that we have attachments that aren't available to us in our agenda. I've only just noted that. It says they're in public excluded, but they're not in public excluded. So we don't have the full picture. Also, what I've just heard from staff is that they've got some questions.
There's no debate when you move a motion to let it lie on the
Okay.
table. So have you got a date when you want to reconsider it? Would that be the 25th of July?
I'd bring it back to our next council meeting
Yeah.
with a report associated specifically on
No.
this particular item. Thank you.
Okay, I'll second that, and because it's a procedural motion, there's no debate. I'll put that to a vote. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
No, you can't say, you can't even say absolutely ridiculous. There's no.
Yeah, division.
The papers aren't there, Mr.
Righty-ho, so we've been asked to record a vote by division.
So all in favour of letting this lie on the table until the 25th of July?
Worship. Deputy Mayor Cooper, Councillor Spires, Councillor Coford, Councillor Warwick, Councillor Coe, and Councillor Pravanov. Are those against? Thank you. Councillor Halliday and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. So we keep learning from these reports and recommendations from community boards about the level of information we need, how we formulate the recommendations, how we make sure we have all the information so that we have a level of comfort amongst councillors, because it would have been really nice to put this through today, but I just feel like some councillors feel like they don't have the information. Okay. No, we did D. This is E. So we've done E, we're on to F. So E has been left to lie on the table. I suggest that we leave, I'm going to move a procedural motion that we leave F on the table too, because it's in a similar position to E. Seconded by Councillor Warwick. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Anybody against?
No. So, Madam Chair, could I just raise a point that the head of the Waikanae Community Board wasn't even allowed to speak to their own
Yes,
motion?
I realise that's unfortunate, but once somebody moves a procedural motion, then there's no more debate.
Okay, I feel that's just poor.
Well, it's in the standing orders.
Standing orders.
I don't. It's the middle of winter. You know, we're under no time. If it was the end of summer, we had to build a playground next week, or it was going to start pouring with rain. But if people are uncomfortable, leaving things to lie on the table is no great disaster. It'll be considered at the next meeting when everybody feels comfortable and everybody has the full information. And I'm sorry you didn't get to speak, Mr. Mansell, but that if you look at the standing orders, once somebody moves to table a motion, it's usually a sign that people feel like they don't have enough information. And we've got a job to do as governors to make sure that we make decisions in the best interests of our community with full information. And it's not just about this application, it's about how we run this new fund into the future and how we deal with it when community boards find unexpected buckets of money. You know, it's actually got implications for other funds as well. You know, I know it seems like what you're saying, Councillor Wilson. Okay, so we're on to F. We've had a vote to table that, and that's passed. We move on to. Thank you very much for this report and the work that's gone into it. It's going really well for a while. And we'll continue to work on it. Confirmation of minutes. There are none. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to do a closing karakia now, and then we'll move into public excluded, and then we don't have to come out of public excluded. We don't have to go back into live streaming because we'll have no more items. So, kia tau ngā manaakitanga ki runga i a tātou katoa. Kia hua ai te mā kihi e ki ana. Kia toi te kupu, kia toi te reo, kia toi te wairua, kia tau te Māori. Ki roto i a mātou mahi katoa i tēnei rā. Haumie huie, tae ki e. Can I have a mover that we move into public excluded, please? Moved Councillor Warwick, seconded Councillor Pravanov. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. So we'll now have a lunch break and we'll come. Oh, hang on. How long is our verbal property thing?